Today we're going to focus on using the Gemini or any of your die cutters to do some die cuts and some embossing. So I use a Gemini. It does make my life easier not having to crank, but this will work with any die cutter that you happen to have. So right now I have a couple of pieces of cardstock and I want to cut a couple of feathers for this design, and I'm going to take them in place. I'll pop this on here, and I know this machine well enough to know that it's going to cut my 2 layers, and I have previously cut out some pieces here, kind of thinking Halloween and fall, and so I pre-cut a few things, and then we will do a couple things here in the video. So here we have our leaf, and excuse my mats, they definitely are in need of replacing, but unfortunately when I was on HSN yesterday, they were all sold out, so I will have to wait a bit to get new. And there are 2 layers here. These are from Anna Griffin's folder sets. This one we're going to do some embossing, and this came with it. It's called Feather Blanket, and I'm going to pop that out. I think he's got kind of a cool little stick look, so I do like that, and might use it in one of these cards that I'm working on. So set that aside. And another die cut piece that I have just done was this beautiful card, and it is die cut. This is from Crafter's Companion, and it definitely is a very pretty design. So I'm going to show you how I did that. Now this die is a very versatile die, and you can cut into a shape, you can cut it along the edge, which is what we're going to do. If I can get this thing in the right direction, there we go, that'll be good. So the first one I'm going to do is I'm going to use both halves of this outside edge, and that will allow me to cut the shape completely out. Now the cutting edge is face up. My magnetic mat is below it, so I'm going to put my paper down face down, and then I'm going to put my mat that I cut into and then my top layer on, and we'll run that through, and hopefully that maybe will cut nice for me. I did the last time. You can kind of hear the machine working a little bit there. So then we're going to do some embossing, but I wanted to get that cut, and didn't catch it when it came out. And then I also wanted to cut the card and show you how that works. So there is the gold. Looks like it cut really well. Yep, definitely did. Except right there where I did not get the 2 halves completely touching on this end. Not a big deal, there it goes. And then we'll just tap out all these little loose pieces. There's something about this metallic paper that I used that it's not as stiff a card. It was actually very inexpensive, and it doesn't cut as clean. Actually, one type that I used was a very flexible with a white backing, and it just honestly would not cut through it at all. I definitely recommend more of this type of a metallic card. This I bought on a whim, and it was very inexpensive. I think I got it at Michael's in one of those paper packs, and it works well enough, but I think that the heavier card is definitely nicer, but they didn't have any at that time, so I did find a couple of pieces while I was going through my stash. So that's the process, just getting all those little pieces out of there. And I'm going to go ahead and clean out this and get these guys out of there. And let's see if I can quick clean this out to reuse it, because we're going to cut this into the card as well. Looks pretty darn good. Okay, let's clean up all these little pieces. And got one there. Go ahead and we're going to lay him down on the magnetic piece and lay him this way. And I'm going to grab my card. Okay. And I want this to go ahead and cut into here. Oop, there is some gold left in there. I want to get a real nice clean cut here, so I don't want any little bits of paper left hanging out in here. And what I'm going to do is cut right at the edge of this card, and then go ahead and line it up and layer the other piece over it to get that pretty look. So we just need to decide which side we want to cut out, and I think I'm going to go with that one, which is this half of the die. So, or not. Let's see, he's that half. Alright, let's flip you around. And so I'm going to position this close to the edge. And then this will go here, and it's going to cut away there, and then I'll just snip in from that. Now, I got this backwards because I do not want that cutting into that magnet. So we're going to pop him there. And we're going to go ahead and add this shim and send her through the machine. Unfortunately, that cutting plate is getting kind of nasty, so I'm not real confident on how this is going to work, but we're going to give it a shot. Well, she's going through, so that's a good sign. All right, the next thing we're going to do is start some embossing and see how that works and some of the different techniques that we can do with the embossing. All right, here she comes out of there. Okay, so I'm going to need that. I'm going to take this out of here and over the wastebasket, knock away all those little bits and pieces. Yeah, and because that wasn't, that cutting mat is not in the best shape, it's not doing a great job, but I can poke out all these little bits and pieces. And then here along the edge, I'm going to grab my scissors and we will trim this away. And we're going to go to this side to where that cutting edge ended. I'm going to trim that away. And now we have a design over the edge of our card. Now that in and of itself is beautiful just the way it is. And you could certainly add some ink to that, some gilding wax, and have an absolute stunning card. But the idea here is to take this, I'll run it through my Xyron, and then I will adhere it onto the card here. And then to make the design stand out. Now this would be nice like for a wedding card. But to do a little bit more and get it stand out, on this one I went ahead and I added this rose colored layer and placed that in there, and then I used a corner rounder and just rounded off the corners to give it that little bit softer look. So that is one example of die cutting and how that is done to create some very intricate work. And we're going to go ahead and we'll do some embossing. I always work in a very clean area. I have to keep cleaning things up behind me, so pardon that. Envelopes. I have an envelope actually for that rose card that I want to kind of dress up the envelope. So I'm going to take this embossing folder, and there's a rose design right here, and so I'm going to emboss that rose onto this envelope. And so I'm going to position it right here, and I know these are thick, so I'm going to go ahead and just use that layer, and that will emboss it. I need the thinner layer, it's not going through. So, and this is something that you will find that a lot of times you're going to have to try different sandwich configurations when you're using different dies, and I recommend always doing a test. Just like when you're cutting on your Cricut, I recommend doing test cuts when you're cutting a new material, and same thing goes here. So with this, there is my rose. Because I did pull it out, it slipped just a little bit. But then what I will do is take a tiny bit of gilding wax and go over that rose design to really make it pop. So we'll work on that after, but looking at Halloween, I have this set from Anna Griffin. This is called Tangled Web, and this, I guess, is supposed to be like a cemetery fence, and I ran that across the flap of this envelope. And then I have my card. I've got it pre-cut here, and again I'm going to run this one through, and this is a spider web design, and we'll run this through and get that embossed. And then I have a fall design, actually two, that I'm going to go ahead and run through. So real quick, I'm going to set him aside, and I have them preset so that you'll be able to see when they're done. Okay, when that runs through, let's look at this one, Tangled Web. One hint that I can give you is they always have the name on top. When you're running it through, make sure that that is facing up on the front side of your card like this, because you have an emboss and you have a deboss, and you can see here this is the deboss. Generally you want the emboss side up. Occasionally though, you're gonna have times where, you know, the artistic license takes in and you're going to want to use the deboss side, and that's fine as well. So we have some different cards now, all embossed. We did some envelopes, and I've got one more envelope to do. I can do that after. And we're going to go ahead and do some fun techniques with this. So my Halloween card, I really like this, and I had die cut this guy. Here it says Spooky, and I have a spider, but they're not going to show up really well on that like that. So what I'm going to do is I have some PBO gilding wax, and I'm a huge fan of gilding wax. So I'm going to start and just go right after this with the gilding wax, and I'm using my finger, and I'm not being overly particular with the fact that it is heavier in some places than it is in others on this one. Just because it's going to have all of the things over it, and I don't want it to have a perfect look, because of course it is spider webs. So let's go ahead and fold this back on his crease line. And now we have our Spooky and our spider, and they will show up a whole lot better on that card. And of course we could change the color of our die cuts and do something a little bit different there. You can actually come in on just the spider's back here and add just a little bit in here as well. I love these little pieces that cut out. And we could certainly add that in there. And then look, I've got this twig thing going on. And quickly, there's a cute little card without a whole lot put into it. And it will be fun for Halloween. Oh, and then this. I wanted to do this on here. I think the cemetery fence would look good. Now this I'm going to do, as you can see, I'm doing lighter, because I really want to get just the top of that fence. And there we go, we have our fence. So that takes care of that one. Now, some more ideas. I have this, and I have a beautiful bronzy gilding wax that I'm hoping will pop on here. And if not, we'll change, we'll do another one. Oh yeah, it does. I think embossing is beautiful just on its own. I think in some more elegant cards, I would leave it just as it is. And something that you're trying to do a little bit more fun, you can use the gilding wax. You can use ink from an ink pad. Those come out really cute. I have also done some effects with different markers and pens and coloring in some things. These were done, this one here was a card that I'd done. This is done with gilding wax. This one is done with colored markers and gilding wax. So you can kind of see the difference there. Here's another envelope done with a wax in a different color. Christmas card done embossed and then waxed. And then this one was done with wax and ink. This one was done colored in. This was also colored with a pencil. And this one was done with a combination of pencils and some gilding wax on the bird cage. So there's a lot of different things that this was actually, I love this because it's done on a shiny sparkle paper. And this is actually an easel card, so that's why it looks like that. When you are done, you can set it here. You can put your sentiment inside, and I think he has actually slid, which he has. Not being stored with a whole lot of care, evidently. There we go, that's better, so you can see. So that is an easel card, but you can see that there are so many different techniques and looks that you can get when you're doing embossing, which is why I love to do embossing on a lot of different cards and even scrapbook pages and things that I'm working on. And it allows you to just change the look. Another thing you can do is to even just emboss just a small feature, like on the inside of your card. Take and emboss just a strip to go down the side. And that adds just kind of a nice little classy look. And if you were to leave it all plain, just run a contrast stripe down here, your sentiment inside. Many times when I emboss a card, I do put a full lining in the card so that what you have is completely smooth on the inside. And that does give it kind of a more professional finished look. So, and again, like on here, we can then go back in and add some of our die cuts. And I would probably use some pop dots to raise this up off from the design there. And, oh, there he is. I knew I had that green leaf. or even come in maybe up higher and then add this. You can get as complex or as little detail simple as you like. Sometimes very simple, again, is very elegant. And then lastly, we have this feather card. I also have the contrast strip for that. And then you could come in even with a couple of die cut feathers and pop a hello, and voila, a beautiful card just as it sits. So there are some ideas on ways to use embossing and die cuts. It can make some very beautiful cards, and it makes them quite quickly, and also is a great way to use up a lot of your scraps. So either you can use them for die cuts, or try your snap mat on your iPad or your iPhone and get through some of those scraps that we all end up collecting. Hope this helps. Have a great day. I wanted to do a follow-up on the video regarding embossing and die cutting. So I had shown you this card and then I had the layers cut. So I did go ahead, run this through the Xyron, and then attach the gold layer to the card base. And I think this one I'm going to leave it the way that it is and use it as an anniversary card, just in the very neutral shades in that gold. I also did some work assembling the other cards that that I die cut, and this one will still get a liner. I cut a rectangle, rounded the edges to make a background for the sentiment because I didn't feel that it really popped. Then I adhered a couple of the leaves that are the same shape as the embossing folder, and then I put a couple of little pop dots behind the top of them to give dimension. I also had cut this out of red, which I then attached to this black card, and this will make a great Valentine's card or even an anniversary, just an I love you card. The feathers, this one is from the feathers folder. I did take a strip from the narrow embossing folder that goes with it, the companion, cut it in half, placed it across the bottom, cut 4 of the leaves, attached them, and then I cut 2 layers of the hello and then offset them just a little bit to have a shadow layer. And then lastly was the Halloween card, and I didn't love it in the black, so I went and grabbed some very shiny cardstock and cut the spider and spooky out of that. And then I adhered those again with some little foam pads, some foam squares. And again, I will line these cards because I do like them with that appearance. So there's the finished product, and as you can see, I have lots of little die cuts and things, and I'll save those for other cards that I will create this fall. But that is my end result, and I just wanted to share that.